My beloved child, many people have taught you that you must be strong like stone, that you must stand firm and never waver, that you must become someone who cannot be wrong in order to be called mature. But I did not create you to be a motionless monument in the storm. I created you as a seed that knows how to bend under the rain and then rise again after each long night. You think I am watching every time you stumble and writing it into a verdict, but I have never carried such a pen in my hand. I look at how you try to stand up, how your trembling feet still take one more step onto the ground I have called you to. When you slip because of weakness, I do not sigh in disappointment. I stoop down to the level where you are, fixing my gaze on the very place where you are hurting. Here lies the anchor of truth. Keep it in your heart. I do not count how many times you fall. I remember every time you stand up by faith. You are afraid that one day I will say, enough, but you do not understand that my patience is not measured by your performance, but by my love for your very soul. You may carry memories of your failures, but I only hold the memory of the times you reached for me when no one saw. You once believed your worth lay in never making mistakes again, that holiness meant never slipping, but you have been looking at the wrong measuring rod. You live in a world that applauds success and despises weakness, and so you have mistakenly thought I am like loving you when you win, turning away when you lose. But I am the one who saw you while you were still dust. I knew you would be stained. I knew you would be unfinished. And I chose you even when you were not ready. You forget that I do not only weigh the destination, I weigh the journey, the small steps, the breaths, the nights when you close your eyes and ask one more time for enough strength to continue. When you lose your balance and fall, it is not the fall that moves my heart, but the moment you say within, I want to try again with you. Those times you rise are never meaningless. They are not just repeated actions, they are the proof of a soul that is maturing. Your resilience is not found in never falling, but in coming back to me after every fall. You do not realize that those moments are building a foundation more secure than any season when you felt steady. Look at the seasons I have led you through. There was a time when you walked straight ahead without thinking, believing nothing could ever knock you down. But that was not because you were strong, it was because the trial had not yet reached the deepest layers. I allowed a few waves to touch the shore of your heart so that you would know. Your feet always need a place to rest, and that place is me. You call those times failure, regression, shame. I call them lessons, a furnace, a bridge, leading you toward your true self in me. Why did I not make you complete from the beginning? Because you would never know that you need me. I want you to learn to return, to learn to lift your weary hands toward me, to learn to bow your head not in despair, but in trust that I will lift you up. When you rise from the very place you fell, you step into the territory of faith, not a vague faith, but a faith that has been forged in sweat and tears. No victory is lasting if it has not passed through a season of defeat. No soul is deep if it has never known its own weakness. Sometimes you condemn yourself for your scars, thinking they diminish your value, but I see them as marks of maturity. A soul that has never stumbled is only a statue standing still, beautiful, yet unfeeling. I did not make you to be displayed. I made you to live. You will be tired, you will hurt, you will break, but all these things speak with one voice. You are still fighting. I do not tell you to resist pain by pretending to be strong. I invite you to find strength right in the middle of your pain. Remember this, tears do not make you weak. They only soften the soil so roots can go deeper. Your falls do not disappoint me. They draw me closer. When you think I am standing far away watching, I am in fact sitting beside you, waiting for the moment you turn your head to seek me. You will never fully grasp the depth of my love until you see me repeating the same answer after every stumble. I am still here. So listen to this, my child. Do not count how many times you fall. Count how many times you return. Each return is a spiritual declaration that you belong to me more than you belong to your failures. When the world asks, why keep trying? Just keep getting up, because I do not ask you that question. I ask, do you want to continue with me? Faith is not a surge of emotion. It is the decision to rise once more. You have never lost your way as long as your gaze is turned toward me, even when your legs are shaking. I am not waiting for you to become flawless. I am waiting for you to trust me enough to stand up. And when you rise, all of heaven does not look at the stains on your clothing. They look at the light in your eyes, the light that only appears in those who know they have fallen but do not want to leave me. You often see your falls as proof that you are not good enough, not strong enough, unworthy of what I have placed in your heart, but you learned that from the world, not from me. The world knows only how to judge by visible results. It looks at falls as marks of failure and records them in a file to judge character. But I see through that surface and see the starting point of a new journey. I did not shape you so you could boast that you have never stumbled. I shaped you so that you would become steadfast after every time you rise. No farmer calls a field useless just because the ground is hard. They know that to plant, the soil must be plowed, broken, and torn open first. I see you when you are being pressed down, not to criticize, but to see whether you will let your roots go deeper beneath the dark, damp soil. Just as a seed needs the darkness of the earth to sprout, your soul needs seasons that seem like failure to awaken the hidden strength within. You call it shame, I call it training. No warrior is formed on smooth lawns. They are shaped in places where feet cannot stand firmly and heartbeats no longer feel calm. Remember this, trials are not accusations. They are tests of the perseverance of your faith. Do not look at your falls as proof that I have turned away, for it is precisely in those moments that I stand nearer to you than ever. The world is quick to see only the present result and forget the depth of the soul, but I do not forget a single drop of sweat you have shed, nor any moment when you tried to take one more step though your hands were trembling. I never place you under pressure, merely to watch you break. I place you under trial so that you may discover that you are not empty inside. I know there are times you blame me for allowing you to stumble, but you have never asked if, without that fall, you would have known how strong I am. You once thought perseverance was something you forged by yourself, but true perseverance is born when you no longer lean on your own strength. It is the spirit James spoke of. The stumbling does not make you weaker. Enduring through it makes your faith mature. Understand this deeply. I am not waiting for you to be perfect so I can love you. I love you so that I may lead you into maturity. There are seasons when you feel as though you are being pressed down into the ground, where there is no light and only mud, where you ask where I am, yet it is in those very places that the soil is rich for roots to find water. I see you. When you bury your face in exhaustion, when you tell yourself, I am too weak, but I see a soul entering its time of formation. Just as a seed cannot sprout on bare rock, you cannot grow in a life that is endlessly smooth. Your falls are like the dark, moist soil surrounding the seed. You feel suffocated, but life is preparing to break forth. You will not see it at once. You will think everything has been buried, but as long as you do not abandon the desire to rise, I will use that very darkness to press strength out of you. I am not waiting for you to overcome before giving grace. Grace is already within you, even when you are still on the ground. When you grow weaker, I do not step back to wait until you are strong again. I sit beside you and extend my hand. The question is not how many times you fall, but how many times, after each fall, you find your way back to me. My child, look at a truth that is gentle yet deep. Those who have never stumbled may appear steady, but they do not know how to rise, while you, who have lain flat on the ground many times, carry a lesson they have never learned. I do not need you to become someone who always wins. I need you to become someone who does not abandon me when you lose. The world applauds those who stand on the summit, but heaven bows in joy before those who rise from the depths by faith. You think I reward victories, but in reality, I give my reward to trust in the midst of failure. I have seen souls crumble in arrogance because they have never fallen. They have never learned the lesson of humility. But you, every bruise is a reminder that you need me, above all. I do not want you paralyzed by fear of stumbling, for feet that refuse to move will never see the road I have prepared. I want you to step forward even knowing you might fall, because that very step is living faith. It is your way of saying, I trust you more than I trust my fear. Let me close this part by saying, do not define yourself by the times you have fallen. Let the act of rising determine who your soul is. The world will stick labels on you, but I do not use labels to call your name. I use the plan I wrote when I formed you. When you see mud at your feet, I see tender roots spreading out. When you feel weak, I see a seed breaking through its old shell. When you ask yourself whether it is worth continuing, I ask, will you trust me one more time? Hold this sentence in your heart like warmth. I am not afraid of your falls. I am only grieved if you give up on getting back up, and if you cannot stand on your own, I will lift you. There is no darkness thick enough to hide a soul that turns toward me. There is no failure great enough to steal away the child who is still reaching for my hand one more time. You think your falls are proof that you have veered off the plan I set for you, but I tell you this, stumbling does not remove you from my plan. It simply reveals the places in your heart that have not yet been healed. The plan I have for you is not a flawless road, smooth, straight, without scrapes. It includes rough stretches, so you may discover the deeper parts of your soul you had never faced. You see failure. I see an opportunity for light to enter, like a cracked wall that unsettles you because of its ugliness. Yet it is that very crack that allows sunlight to stream in and brighten an old room. You hate that tear because it exposes you, but I love it because it is the point where I can touch you without you needing to pretend to be strong. A fall does not interrupt the journey. It halts the steps that were running after human expectations so you can turn back to me. When you fall, you do not lose my guidance. You are simply being invited out of the noise and back to where I am waiting. Do not assume that a deep hole is a bottomless pit. It may be the hidden well beneath, from which you have never really drunk your fill. There were times you believed that maintaining a good image would protect you from pain, that if you walked neatly and never strayed, you would be praised and belong. But I did not call you to polished perfection. I called you to refined honesty. One wrong word in what seemed like an ordinary conversation revealed to you that pride still lingered in your heart, not because you are bad, but because your heart was not yet ready to be weak in front of others. You felt ashamed, you grew silent, you blamed yourself, but I gently lifted you and said, you are not ruined. You have simply seen a part of you that still needs me. No one grows in absolute darkness, but no one is healed in a light that is always covered. When you fall, I do not mark you with the stamp of failure. I mark the places that need my touch. I do not look at you in your fall as one who has betrayed grace. I see you as a child who has just discovered where the locked door is so that I can turn the key from within. A crack is not the end. It is the doorway of change. There are moments when you wonder why I did not shield you from embarrassment, why I allowed you to slip right in front of those you wanted to impress, why words you chose so carefully became clumsy at the last moment. But, my child, if everything always went smoothly, you would believe that strength lies in your skill and control, not in your dependence on me. I allow you to see your limits, so you may know that I have none. I allow you to be awkward so you may know that I am never confused. I allow you to make mistakes so you may know that I am the one who keeps clarity. I do not permit stumbling because I enjoy your pain. I permit it because you truly open your heart only when your defenses break. You avoid cracking because you fear being judged. But I see every crack as a window. The wider it is, the easier it is for light to enter. If the walls of your house never cracked, you would live in a darkness preserved by artificial beauty. You often worry that failure makes you useless before me, as if I were choosing someone with fewer faults, fewer falls, fewer complications. But I do not choose souls because they are already polished. I choose souls because they allow me the right to shape them. I do not need you to prove perfection. I need you to be willing for me to touch the scattered pieces within. I know the things you dare not say, the feelings you hide behind a smile, the times you laugh something off because you fear having to explain. Falling strips those things bare not to shame you, but to free you from living in constant defense. You want to be strong, but you are trying to prove strength by never letting anyone see you tremble. I want you to be strong by trusting me while you tremble. Falling shows you where your heart has not yet found its resting place, where fear still has a voice, where your soul still believes that worth is found in perfection. I see a freedom that has not yet blossomed, just waiting for the moment you admit that you need me. Let me say this to you slowly. There is not a single fall with enough power to make me abandon the plan I wrote for you. That plan does not expect you to walk straight from, beginning to end. It is designed to meet you at every bend, every weakness, every time you stumble and think it is all over. I do not only remember when you succeed, I remember when you bravely rise even while your heart is heavy. A fall may cost you face, but getting up is where you find me. You do not need to shrink back to hide the cracks. You only need to let my light pass through them. Do not punish yourself for being weak. I only ask that you return and place that weakness in my hands. If you learn to see your falls as my invitations, not as the verdict over your life, you will stop running from me every time you break. When you learn this, you will know that you continue not because you are strong, but because I have never left you on the side of the road. You do not hesitate because you do not know. You hesitate because you do not believe what you already know. I placed the calling within you long before you asked anyone for their opinion, yet you stand before the open door and wait for the applause of approval. You call it caution, but in truth, it is the fear of being misunderstood. You are not afraid of acting wrongly through reason. You are afraid of acting rightly without anyone there to witness it. I see you taking half steps, then stopping, circling around what I have given you as if it were only a passing thought. You do not realize that by delaying, you are gently denying the gift I planted within your soul. I have never required you to understand everything before you step forward. I only ask you to believe that I have placed something inside you. You wait for the world to see, but the world only sees what has already materialized, while I see the seed long before it is given a name. Hesitation causes your heart to mistake wisdom for approval. You tell yourself, perhaps when they agree, I will move. But while you wait for their nod, you are unknowingly denying the voice I have already spoken. I do not place my will in the consensus of the crowd. I place it in the revelation of the Spirit. You seek too many opinions, because you believe that many voices will calm you. Yet I have seen you many times become more confused after every consultation. For people judge by appearance, while I judge by what I have sown within your inner being. When you wait for their confirmation, you allow your soul to be stretched between expectations that no one will be accountable for. I do not blame you for seeking understanding, but I invite you to learn how to trust me before you trust their reactions. Faith is not born from applause. It is born from the willingness to walk even when no one claps. There are things I have placed in you not so you can prove them to anyone, but so you may learn to live authentically before me. Hesitation creates a gap between what you know is right and what you choose to do, and within that gap is the sigh of the soul. You are not tired because you work too much. You are tired because you lie to your own spiritual instinct. I see you suppress the ideas I gave you because you fear being judged, fear others will call you naive or foolish. You call it not wanting to cause trouble, but I see it as the fear of isolation. When you follow my will, others may not understand, but you are not walking so they will understand. You walk so that I may walk with you. I do not want you to be a soul shaped by the noise of the world, but a soul led by my silence. Do not demand confirmation from those who have never listened to me as you have. I know you were once criticized for doing the right thing, so you learned to stay silent to avoid being hurt. But pain does not prove that you were wrong. It only proves that the world was not ready to see what I was nurturing in you. Souls who walk ahead of the light are often called dreamers, unrealistic, impractical, but I have never used those words to describe you. I call you one who is maturing and learning to place trust above surface reactions. Hesitation is not lack of ability. It is the fear that the truth you carry will have no witness. But my child, I have never chosen the audience before. I choose the one who carries the mission. I do not look for people to cheer you on. I look for people to lift you once you have already stepped. So do not let the stern eyes of the world bind your feet. I want to see you walk while your heart is trembling, not to prove your strength, but to prove your trust in me, so that you may understand this clearly. I place my hand upon your shoulder and speak softly. The waiting for human approval only lengthens the road I have already prepared. You do not need them to legitimize the calling I have placed within you. You do not need perfection to begin, only honesty toward the voice I have spoken. I chose you because you listened, not because you pleased everyone. I gave you your own vision, your own steps, your own way of perceiving, not so that you would hide them, but so that you would grow in peace. If you keep waiting for the world's permission, you will miss the seasons for which you were already ready. I do not want to see you remain on this side of the shore gathering approval. I want to see you step, for I will open the path when your feet touch the ground. Hesitation does not arrive with a roar, it arrives in the gentlest whisper, "Not today." You once thought that taking a small step backward was harmless, that just a few more days to prepare would make everything perfect, but one day becomes another, and tomorrow becomes today, like an underground current slowly erasing your footprints. Hesitation does not destroy dreams with a hammer. It coats your intentions with a thin layer of dust until you no longer notice your hands have put them down, and you begin to believe that delay is wisdom, that inaction is the way to wait for a better moment. But my child, the better moment does not appear as a miraculous gift. It is born from movement while your mind is still uncertain. Darkness does not fear your surrender. It only needs you to keep saying, "Another day." I have seen countless dreams frozen simply because you handed control over to delay. Hesitation is not a loud enemy. It is the quiet companion that makes you forget the light only appears when you turn it on. You think that darkness will come as a fierce trial, as a clear failure that brings you to your knees, but the enemy is more cunning. It tells you that you need more information, more evidence, more assurance from others, that you just need a little more for everything to be perfect. It makes you gather small conditions, tiny approvals, countless external confirmations, until the original intention, the one I placed in you, gets lost in a maze. Hesitation burrows itself into daily routine. You sit down but never begin. You feel the urge but open something else. You hear my voice in your heart but think, "When I feel more comfortable, I will do it." Darkness does not attack your calling with brutality. It lulls you with convenience, with the comfort of almost starting. You do not feel defeated, but neither do you see yourself advancing. My child, time does not wait. Ephesians has already reminded you to redeem the days, for they are evil. I do not punish you for being slow. I simply remind you that perpetual slowness is a quiet form of surrender. It is like the table by your window. The first speck of dust seems unimportant. The second is just a slight nuisance. The third barely noticeable, and suddenly you realize the surface has been covered without knowing when it began. Hesitation works the same way. You postpone today. Then part of your heart begins to believe that everything can be done later, and the faith that was once alive is gradually covered by the dust of delay. No one sees it from the outside. People only see you busy, kind, productive, and they think you are fine. But I see the dreams you folded and placed into drawers. I see the callings you heard in the night, only to silence them with a sigh. Hesitation does not wound you. It numbs you. And that numbness makes you lose sensitivity to my voice, like a musician slowly forgetting the true note because they no longer practice. You do not understand why. Your spiritual sharpness fades, but I know the reason. You have allowed the habit of tomorrow to replace obedience. I want you to understand this. I do not expect you to accomplish everything in a single day. I only ask that you do not abandon what I have planted through delay. I did not create you to live a life of forever getting ready, because true readiness is born in the very act of moving. You wait until circumstances are peaceful, until others agree, until you feel strong enough, but those moments arrive only when you step forward. A seed does not wait for perfect soil to grow. It germinates in tightness and darkness, because its nature is to live. Likewise, the dreams I have placed within you are not sustained by hesitation. They require small courage, not great courage, just enough to spark a single flame. I do not fault you for lack of experience. I simply remind you that experience never comes from waiting. When you allow tomorrow to replace today, you are training yourself to live like someone who never begins, even though your heart is full of the promises I have placed there. My child, I do not want you to fear hesitation. I want you to recognize it. Once you see it, you will know how to stand against it. I know the wounds that make you reluctant to move forward. I remember every criticism, every past failure, every stare that made you shrink back. But do not let those memories wear the clothes of wisdom and call themselves not the right time. There are moments when the timing truly is wrong, but often, not the right time is simply fear disguised as caution. I have placed life within you so that you would step, not so that you would hesitate. And when you step, you never step alone. I walk beside you, before you, and around you. I correct your path when you stumble and lift you when your knees shake. You do not need to win immediately. You only need to refuse to give delay the loudest voice in your soul. Hesitation does not merely postpone an action. It reshapes the way you value your life. When you hesitate too long, you begin to believe that safety is the destination, not the launch pad. You no longer approach your crossroads with trust, but with the question, will this get me into trouble? That is the moment you step away from the right question. Is this what you have called me to do? Hesitation makes you forget the essence of the journey of faith. You are not called to remain in comfort. You are called to grow, step by step. Safety is not evil, but when it becomes the goal instead of the means, it closes your soul like a sprout sealed inside a box. That sprout may look unharmed, but it will never become a tree. You are the same. You may not break, but you also do not live. That is the most dangerous consequence of hesitation. It makes you choose, it's fine, instead of, this is right. When safety becomes your compass, you begin to interpret my voice through what does not shake you, what does not challenge you, what does not make you face what you fear. You will choose work because it is less demanding, relationships because they do not require vulnerability, environments because they do not force you beyond the familiar. You will call those choices peace, when in truth, they are simply a fur blanket laid over your confusion. I have seen many souls believe that remaining still is a sign of blessing, when in fact it is only paralysis, dressed in comfort. Choosing the path of lesser risk is not the journey of faith. It is how darkness turns you into a manager of your own fear. If you live only to avoid pain, you will never learn how to take responsibility for the joy I long to give you. Hesitation also carves a false equation into your mind. You begin to measure your worth by how many times you have not failed. Instead of how many times you were brave enough to learn, you think, as long as I don't mess up, I'm doing fine, and that quiet sentence strangles the creativity within you. You forget that from the very beginning I established growth as the law of life. The seed must break, the sprout must pierce the soil, the roots must push through stone. Without such friction, there is no maturity. Hesitation turns small scratches into terrors. It makes you view every mistake as a threat rather than a teacher. I do not count how many times you fall. I remember every time you stand. Back up, because rising is the act of faith, while hesitation is merely the reaction of fear. You will never learn to walk by staying in the safety of the bed, nor will you ever learn to trust me by choosing only the paths you can control. My child, hesitation also steals something you never realize until too late. The time I have given you to become more like me. When you think maturity only emerges from grand moments, you overlook the small invitations, the trembling first steps. I do not train you through great victories. I train you through the times you know you are weak and still step forward. Every time you choose safety, you close the door to a lesson I prepared for you. I want you to know that no one becomes strong by avoiding the wind. They become strong by learning how to keep balance when the wind blows. Hesitation turns wind into a reason to stay indoors, but faith turns wind into a lesson in walking with me. If you wait until there is no risk, you will live your whole life in the hallway and never enter the room I prepared. Do not confuse caution with fear. Caution is when you listen to my voice and walk step by step. Fear is when you hear my voice but remain still because the voices of the world are louder. Hesitation is fear wearing the costume of caution. It never says don't, it only says not yet. I call you into growth, not perfection, and growth always requires movement. You do not need to prove anything to me. You only need to believe that my word over you is worth acting upon. Hesitation will try to convince you that safety is the goal, but the true goal is to become the person I designed you to be. And that only happens when you step, even with trembling heart, because it is in stepping that I walk with you and teach you how to stand. There are falls that do not scrape knees, that leave no bruise on the skin, but fracture the soul in silence. They do not happen in crowds, nor under noise or bright lights. but appear in the mind as a sigh no one hears, a subtle undertow beneath a calm sea. I have seen you, sitting among others while your heart is an isolated island, where you try to appear normal and strong while heavy thoughts rest upon your shoulders. You assume that because no one knows, no one sees, the fall is not real. But my child, what happens in silence is often the fiercest battle of all. Discouragement makes no sound, yet it weighs like a stone sinking to the ocean floor, pulling the soul deeper each time you believe you are not enough. Self-blame has no tangible form, yet it erodes your faith like waves eating into a cliffside, unnoticed until the shoreline has receded. And doubt does not scream in your face. It whispers, slowly, precisely, like cold water slipping into cracks of stone, breaking everything inside before the surface begins to split. I see those falls even when you do not name them. I see them in the very moment you still tell yourself, it's probably just a mood. I see when a passing remark plants the thought that you are not competent. I see when one small mistake makes you believe your whole future is slipping away. I see when you have done everything right, yet the results do not appear, and in that silence you conclude that you are unworthy. The quietest falls often begin with invisible sentences you speak to yourself. I'm stupid. I disappoint everyone. Maybe I should stop trying. I hear every one of those sentences, even when they echo only in your heart. I am not fooled by the calm surface, just as I am not fooled by the ocean's stillness when I see the powerful currents beneath. You can hide every sign of collapse from the world, but you never need to hide them from me. I do not blame you for that weakness. I know that the fall in the mind often comes before the fall in life, like an undercurrent that rises before the storm. When you grow discouraged, you begin to shrink back, to pull yourself inward to avoid impact. When you accuse yourself, you treat yourself as a failure before you have even tried one more time. When you doubt, you build invisible walls to keep yourself from being hurt, but those very walls also keep you from receiving healing from me. There are days when you wake up with no strength to step out of bed, not because your body is tired, but because your mind lost the battle the night before. You still go to work, still talk, still laugh, still do everything that must be done, yet inside you there is only emptiness, not the open space of peace, but a hollow of exhaustion. And I have been there, in each of those quiet moments, to remind you that invisible wounds are no less real than the ones everyone can see. The falls that happen in your mind have one particular trait. They always make you feel that you must get up by yourself. You think, this is just a small matter, I shouldn't be this weak. Others are worse off, and they still carry on. But my child, what makes you so weary is not the turmoil inside, but the persate belief that you must face it alone. When the waves pile up into heavy layers beneath the surface, even the largest ship cannot remain steady without an anchor. I do not ask you to become a calm sea. I give you an anchor so you can endure the tides. I do not reward souls that have never trembled. I uphold the souls that return to me the moment they begin to shake. I have never measured you by the times you stumble in your thoughts. I look at the times you turn back to me, even after those thoughts have drained your strength. I want you to understand that a silent fall is not proof of spiritual failure. It is a signal that the soul is in need of being touched. I do not correct you with lightning. I call you with the gentleness of the tide, wave after wave, washing against the rocky shore of your mind until the stone begins to soften. I do not condemn you for the moments when you feel weak. I see those moments as opportunities for you to learn how to lean on me. I do not need you to stand up immediately to prove anything at all. I want you to know that even when you only have enough strength left to whisper, I am already there to listen. My child, a soul is not measured by never stumbling, but by whom it returns to after every fall. There are trials that do not come from the outside, not from the criticism of others, nor from harsh circumstances, but arise within your own mind when you begin to see yourself as smaller than what I have placed inside you. Those thoughts are not loud, not fierce, like a storm. They are as small as mist and seep slowly into every cell of the soul until you no longer realize you are surrounded. You are not afraid because you have failed. You are afraid because you believe you deserve only a small, safe, insignificant life. And there, my child, is the most delicate ground where faith is tested, because no one walks there with you, no one sees you resisting. There is only you and the silent whispers trying to define your worth. One very soft voice in your mind says, "Stop trying, this is as far as you can go." And another murmurs, "You will only disappoint people if you dare to go further." No one has to say these things out loud, because your soul has repeated them long enough to accept them as truth. But remember this, what I have planted in you has never been small. Only your view of yourself has made it seem narrow. The thoughts that make you feel small are not giant stones blocking the road. They are a fine dust settling over the light, and if you do not wipe it away, day by day, it thickens until you forget that the light was once so clear. You can tell others that you are fine, that you still believe, that you are still strong, but only you and I know how fierce the inner battle truly is. Every time you step back because you are afraid of troubling others, every time you shrink yourself because you think you are not good enough, every time you look at someone else's success and quietly ask why I have not done the same with you, each of these moments is a hidden field where your faith is being tested. People think faith is tested when you face obvious failure, when you lose something great. But in truth, faith is tested most deeply when you sit quietly and decide that you have no right to ask anything of your Father. My heart breaks not because you do not have enough, but because you believe you are not worthy to receive. I want you to understand this. Smallness in your thinking does not come from being immature. It comes from forgetting who you are in me. The enemy does not need to tear down your soul with great waves. He only needs to feed you the idea that you are merely a survivor, that you are just getting by, that your prayers are too weak to reach the heights of heaven. He does not need to steal what I have given. He only needs to convince you that you have no right to receive it, and then you yourself place my blessings outside the reach of your own hands. These thoughts do not appear as a heated argument. They move like a shadow that grows larger as the light recedes. When you lose focus on me, you begin to focus on your limits, and limits will always make you tremble. I do not ask you, why are you not perfect yet? I simply ask, why do you believe in your smallness more than you believe in me? There is a truth I want you to keep in your heart. The enemy is not afraid of weak souls. He is afraid of souls that know how to return to me the moment weakness appears. You think I am waiting for steady steps, that I require you to be strong before coming to me. Yet, I have seen you since you were only a fragile sprout hidden in the dark of the soil, and I have never demanded that a sprout carry the weight of a fully grown tree on its first day. I do not see your smallness as something wrong. I only grieve when you use that smallness to deny the grace I long to pour out. Look at the waves beneath the surface of the sea. They do not shatter the shore all at once. They simply eat away at it bit by bit until one day you realize the beach has receded and no one remembers when it began to vanish. Doubt about your worth works the same way. It does not tear the soul apart in one night. It narrows you little by little, thought by thought, word of self-denial by word of self-denial. But my child, I do not abandon those inner lands. I step into them with the patience of a gardener. I do not ask you to pull out all the weeds in a single day. I only want you to recognize them so that I can remove them with you. I do not demand that you possess great faith at once. I only ask that you be humble enough to hand me each trembling part of your soul. You call these thoughts weakness, but I see them as doors through which I may enter more deeply. You think you are losing your motivation, but I see that you are learning how to lean on me instead of carrying everything alone. I do not come to criticize you for your inner battles. I come to remind you that this battle is not meant to be a playground of isolation. You do not have to fight alone in your mind and then come to me only after you win, asking me to approve. Even when you have not found an answer yet, I am already there in every heavy breath, in every silent moment when you lie staring at the ceiling and cannot find a single word to say. There are falls that happen in places no one can see, in the silent gaps between your thoughts, where your soul examines itself more harshly than any judgment spoken outside. No eyes follow you, no reproachful voice rises, only the quiet heaviness in your heart that makes you believe you have disappointed me. You think I will turn away because you are weak. You think I will compare you to those who stand firmer. But when you fall in the hidden places, I do not come as a judge. I approach as a Father who places his hand on your shoulder, not to shame you, but to build a fence around your heart. You do not know this because you have grown used to recognizing me only in the seasons when you stand strong, in the moments when you succeed. Yet I am closest when you tremble. A child who falls in the middle of a square will have many rush to lift them up, but a child who stumbles alone in a dark room will hear only their own breath. And in that darkness, I kneel beside you, so that you may know I am still here. You once imagined my correction like thunder that crashes to awaken you, to frighten you into obedience. But I do not use noise to pull you back. I use closeness to open your heart. When you stumble in a place you never dared to speak of, when you no longer have the strength to pray with words, when you do not know where to begin mending yourself, I do not ask, "Why are you so weak?" I ask, "What part of you is hurting?" I look not only at behavior, I look at the source, and what I mend is the root, not the branch. I do not build fences to accuse. I build fences to protect. Like a gardener who encloses young plants, so the wild animals cannot destroy them, I see the cracks in your heart before they become fractures that lead to ruin. You only see a fall, but I see a place needing comfort. You only see failure, but I see soil for sowing new faith. That is why I draw near not to recite your errors, but to show you what I am, preparing to make right through my kindness. The falls in hidden places are often the most dangerous because no one knows to lift you, yet it is exactly there that I become the savior no one else can replace. The enemy wants to turn those falls into proof against you. He whispers into your ear, "You have stained your hands. You are no longer worthy." And because no one hears his voice, you easily mistake it for your own thoughts. I do not defeat him with lightning. I silence him with gentleness. That gentleness is what he hates most, because it exposes him as a liar. When you kneel in loneliness, I do not say, "You must try harder." I say, "I see you, and I am here." That presence is a wall of protection, not a prison. It wraps around your soul like a soft coat against the cold wind, like the arms of a father soothing his child who has just cried over scraped knees. I know that in those moments you do not need a lesson. You need a place to lean. You think I come only when you have already fixed yourself, but I come when you do not even know what to fix. I do not ask you to wash the dust from your face before you look at me. I am the one who wipes the dust from your face. A potter does not discard the vessel when it cracks. He places his hand upon the fracture, softens the clay with water, then presses with the right amount of pressure to form a new shape. I do with your soul the same way. I do not say, "You are ruined." I say, "Let me reshape this part." And when I work, I do not rush. I know every fall contains the personal story of your heart, the place where you were once hurt, where you believed a lie, where you have not yet learned how to breathe in my peace. Not every fall is the same, so not every healing is the same. I touch each place in turn, at the right moment, in the right way, so that you will not be afraid to return to me again. If you look at me with the eyes of the world, you will think I come to condemn. But if you look at me with the heart that has once been lifted by my hand, you will know I come to protect. The enemy wants you to imagine my judgment like a hammer striking down, but in truth it is like the fence surrounding a tender sprout so the wind will not tear it away. Not because you are weak, but because the life within you is precious. Not because you are useless, but because I see the seasons of fruit that are coming. The world sees protection as limitation, but I see protection as proof of worth. You do not fence off what is meaningless. You fence off what needs time to grow. Therefore, when I build fences around your heart, do not think it is a sign of unworthiness. Understand it as my silent declaration. I have never abandoned you. When you fall, the first thing that surrounds your mind is not pain, but the fear that I have left you. The silence after a fall makes you think I have turned away, that I am weary of repeated mistakes, that I have stopped listening to your tired prayers. But that silence is not a closed door. It is a mirror placed before your soul so you may see what you truly believe about me, not what you say in prayer, but what you cling to when no one is watching. It is easy to say, "I believe you love me," when you stand strong, but the days you fall reveal your true belief. Silence does not come to burden you, but to gently lift the layers of fear you have hidden. so you may realize that you have trusted the condemnation of darkness more than my mercy. There are lights that do not blaze, yet guide more faithfully than the sun. Like the moon, it is not hot, not forceful, does not throw harsh shadows like midday. It is soft, still, silent, and it does not demand you to rush. The moon simply rests, thin like a ribbon of light, enough to mark direction, enough to tell you, you are not lost. My silence is the same. It does not hurry, does not threaten, does not press. It invites you to stop, take a slow breath, and let the deepest question echo in your soul. What am I believing about him in this moment? I am not afraid of your answer. I do not tremble before your doubt. I have entered the darkest corners of your heart long before you dared to face them yourself. Silence is the space I create so you may see yourself with honesty, not under stage lights, but in the secret room where you and I stand face to face. Often when you fall, you react by forcing yourself to rise quickly, brushing off the dust, as if nothing happened, as if the speed of standing up could erase weakness. You think I want you to appear strong, but I have always valued honesty more. I do not say, rise quickly so you will not disappoint me. I say, stay with me a moment so you may understand where you fell. My silence is an invitation, not a verdict. It leads you to look at the inner structure, the unnamed fears, the expectations you place upon yourself, the illusions of being good enough that you assume I demand. I do not play hide and seek with your soul. I am not silent because you are unworthy. I am silent because you must learn to hear the sound that is smaller than my words, the sound of faith. There are falls that do not strike the body, but strike the ability to believe you can continue. In those moments, you sit on the cold ground, not because your legs cannot walk, but because your heart no longer dares to take another step. You say to me, surely you are tired of me. Surely you are disappointed. Surely you have chosen someone else. Those words are not my judgment. They are fragments of a mirror reflecting the doubt that darkness wants you to embrace. When I remain silent, it feels as if every one of those thoughts is confirmed, but I do not answer them because I do not sign my name on lies. I will not argue with fear. I will let the light of truth defeat it. My silence is the space where you may recognize you are trying to force me into the likeness of those who once disappointed you. You are using human experience to define divine love. And I wait, not because I am distant, but because I want you to see the difference. The world teaches you that a fall is proof of weakness, and such weakness makes you lose worth. In that logic, silence means abandonment, like the friend who turns away when you fail, like the teacher who cares only for the best student. But I am not like the people you have known. I am not like the ones who walked out of your life when you were no longer strong enough to make them proud. I do not see the fall as a stain on some record. I see it as a crack through which light can enter. Not all creation is born of triumph. Many things are forged through fragments, through warped forms that must be reshaped. My silence is the point of contact between pain and healing, between weakness and strength, between humanity and God. I stand there, not with eyes of condemnation, but with patience, waiting for the moment when you dare to look at yourself without fear. I do not demand that you understand everything in a single rising. I do not say, if you were strong, you would overcome it at once. I teach you to walk, not to leap. I teach you to breathe, not to force yourself. I teach you to stand through me, not to stand for me. You may shake, you may move slowly, you may need time. Because if I can wait for you, why can you not wait for yourself? Silence is the language I speak, not to your ears, but to your heart. I am not far from you. I am sitting beside you, only far enough that you do not mistake me for your emotions. I want you to learn the difference. What is the voice of accusation from guilt, and what is the voice of invitation from grace? There have been times when you asked me not to let you fall again, and when the fall still came, you assumed I did not hear. You thought that if I loved you, I would protect you from every mistake, every weakness, every impact that breaks your heart. But my child, I do not form faith by wrapping you in glass. I form faith by being present in the very moment when you think there is nothing left to hold on to. I do not always rescue you from falling. I rescue you in the fall, so that you will know I am present even there. Rescue from is a solution for the body. Rescue within is the lesson of the spirit. I do not stand on the shore waving at you. I am within the fall itself, placing my hand beneath you before you touch the ground, so that you may understand. What you fear most is not the end, it is the space before you meet me. A fall is not always an obvious crash in front of others. Often it is a small misstep that startles you. You try to keep your balance, you pretend to be fine, but inside, your soul is sinking inch by inch. I see every motion. I see the moment when the heart begins to lose strength, like someone slipping underwater, not because the waves are great, but because the legs are tired and the lungs are seeking air. When you sink, you cannot control your direction. Every desperate movement only churns the water more violently. But when you let go in exhaustion, my hand is already beneath you, not pulling harshly, not yanking suddenly, simply lifting, like a hand set. Beneath the surface of the water, no splash, no noise, yet enough to keep you from sinking to the bottom. I do not come like thunder, shaking the sky. I come as a quiet force beneath you, so that you may know I was not abandoned. You often think that spiritual wisdom is the ability to never fall. But true wisdom is the ability to recognize my hand in the fall itself. You remember the times you tried to stand up too quickly, wiping away the signs of weakness so no one would see. You rushed forward before the heart healed, only to fall again. You believed that if you made yourself strong, I would be proud. And if I had to rescue you many times, I would be disappointed. But I do not calculate those moments. I do not look at the number of falls. I look at the way you return. If I always prevented you from stumbling, you would believe peace comes from perfection. But when I rescue you in the fall, then you will know that peace comes from my presence. My support is not like the support of people. People hold you up with encouragement, with temporary reassurances, with their wish for you to get back to how you were. I sustain you by reshaping your inner being. I do not lift you to place you back where you were. I lift you to bring you deeper, to the place where you learn to breathe by faith, not by effort. I know there are waters where you think that if you just try a little harder, you will surface. And when you gasp for air and tell me, breathless, I can handle it, I do not grow angry. I simply allow you to meet the limit of your own strength, not to drown you, but to teach you. True strength is not swimming against the current. It is allowing me to raise you through the depths you cannot resist. Some falls happen in the midst of prayer, not because you lack belief, but because faith is being redefined. You take the first steps full of confidence, and suddenly everything familiar slips away from under your feet, as if stone becomes mud. You panic, thinking I have changed my mind, but I have never withdrawn my hand. I want you to feel that moment, when you realize that every foundation you relied on is too thin to carry your soul. That is where I become the foundation. Not loud, not dazzling, just like the hand beneath the water, not dragging you upward by display, but holding you from the depths with a gentleness no one else can see. If I saved you before you touched the water, you would believe you were never weak. But when I save you in the water, you discover that the weakness itself is the doorway where I step in. I am not afraid of getting dirty when I step into the water with you. I wear no gloves. I do not stand on the shore shouting instructions. I lower myself to the very place where you flail, not because I fear you will die, but because I want you to feel my hand in the quiet of surrender. When you stop fighting, you will sense me not as a concept, but as a truth pulsing through every heartbeat. I know when to let you swim, and I know when to keep you from the deep. Do not call it punishment. It is the way I teach you not to identify yourself with failure. One who falls is not a failure. They are simply someone who has not yet learned how to lean on me. My child, the world looks at your fall and says, you should be stronger. I look at your fall and say, let me come closer. The world says, why didn't you try harder? I say, you have tried long enough, let me lift you. The world chooses distance when your wounds show. I choose nearness when you lose control. The world thinks salvation is dragging you back to shore as fast as possible. I know that true rescue is sometimes staying with you beneath the cold layers of water, so your heart learns that I do not abandon you simply because you cannot swim. I do not rejoice when you get up by yourself. I rejoice when you learn to run to me. You were created to know you need me, not to disguise that need. If you lived your whole life without ever falling, you would live your whole life without ever opening your heart to me. I am not afraid of your weakness. I only fear you believing. You must be strong alone. I lift you in your fall to shatter that lie. I want you to understand that strength does not come from avoiding the water. Strength comes from knowing who is beneath you. Trust is not a burst of emotion when the sky is clear and the breeze is gentle, but the soul's choice when clouds close in and you no longer see the path. You often believe you trust me when everything flows smoothly, when plans align, when your heart feels like a light breeze at dawn. But my child, true trust begins where breath grows short, where your heart sinks, where your hands shake from exhaustion. Trust is not believing everything will go well. Trust is believing that even when you gasp, I hold you. I do not ask you to be stronger than the waves before stepping into the water. I ask you to know that in every gasp, my hand remains where no one else can see. You may flail with uneven strokes, swallow the salt, struggle to keep your head above water, yet I am still there. I do not retract my hand simply because you have not learned the rhythm. That is trust, not standing on the shore calculating the depth, but knowing I am waiting even if you fall deep. I see how you judge yourself by how well you manage everything. If all is orderly, you breathe and call it peace. If something slips, you feel guilt, failure, shame, thinking your faith was not enough. But trust is not keeping all things tidy. Trust is accepting the chaos of reality. You are not the moon that controls the tides, nor the one who bends storms into gentle winds. You are simply a child in my arms. There are seasons when I let you walk through deeper waters, not to drown you, but for you to learn what you never realized. The true foundation is not in your arms, but in my strength. When you gasp, I do not avert my eyes. I do not compare you to another. I do not say, "Why aren't you better at this yet?" I only extend my hand quietly, without scolding, like a father standing in the water, refusing to let his child sink, even if the child does not yet know how to float. Trust begins here, when you understand that I do not measure your worth by how many breaths you lose. You once believed trust meant never trembling. You thought faith was a sharp, radiant state, where every answer arrives in time and every road is clearly marked. But that is simply the mind's expectation. True trust does not avoid confusion. It walks into confusion like a rower crossing the lake without seeing the bottom. The rower does not ask how long the wind will shift. He only knows he must keep pulling the oars, because the harbor existed before he set out. You do not need to understand what I am constructing. You only need to keep walking, keep calling my name when your breathing falters, keep reaching for my hand when you lose your footing. I never said trust meant not shaking. I only said that when you shake, you can come to me. Not to prove you are strong, but to prove I will not abandon you. There are people who trust me when sunlight blazes, but when wind rises, they forget the promise and hurry back to the shore. They think I am present only in brightness, in victories, in applause after every step. Yet I am also there, in the uneven breathing, in the pounding of your heart, in the quiet whisper you do not dare speak aloud. I am present in the very place you fear. When you slip away from the false stability you once relied on, when you step past the familiar door and lose every anchor, I do not yell. I rest, my hand on your shoulder, not to pull you upright immediately, but to let you know, I truly am here. You do not need to believe you are skilled enough not to fall. You only need to believe I am great enough to hold you when you do. The world calls this weakness. I call it learning to breathe in my grace. A child who cannot swim is not a failed child. It is simply a child whose hand has never yet been held in the water. I know how you have blamed yourself for not performing better, not preparing more, not being stronger when the trial arrived. You think, if I had trusted God enough, I wouldn't have gasped. But you do not. Understand that trust is born not from never gasping, but from calling my name in that very moment. When Peter stepped onto the water, he did not believe because he knew how to walk on waves. He believed because he looked at me. And when he began to sink, He did not sink because his faith was worthless. He sank because his eyes turned toward the wind instead of toward me. Yet in that exact moment, I did not watch him descend into fear. I reached for him. No scolding, no anger, only one question. Why did you doubt? Not to shame him, but to awaken the faith that was already his. That is trust, not the absence of sinking or trembling, but knowing that even when you gasp, I hold you with an unchanging hand. Others may never see the moments you suffocate. They may see only the smile, the strength, the endurance, and assume you are overcoming with ease. But I see the moment you hold your breath before fear. I see the moment you want to stop. I see the moment you stand between two waters, unsure whether to continue or return. I never leave that place. I come closest when you think no one will. You may be weak, you may shake, you may even want to turn away. I do not call that betrayal. I call that your honest self, the one I chose, the one I am shaping, the one I will not release, simply because you have not learned the lesson instantly. So do not flee from me when you gasp. It is precisely then that you must draw near. There are some who believe rising after a fall is the prize, as if I bless only those who outperform the test. But I want you to understand this more deeply. I raise you not because you meet the world's standards, but because I am forging a quality inside you that only those who walk through valleys can possess. Endurance. You do not learn endurance from your first triumph, nor from a chorus of cheers. Endurance is born in the moment you crash to the ground and think no eyes are watching. It is born when you believe it is over, but still decide to plant a hand on the earth to stand up once more. That is the moment I brush the dust from your knees with a tenderness no world has ever taught you. I do not lift you so you can save your dignity. I lift you so your soul may know the depth of my heart. I do not measure the child I love by perfection. I look at the willingness to move forward when you are tired. Endurance is not the fiery emotion at the beginning. It is the quiet persistence that grows each time you realize I am still present after every fall. I do not collect success reports to record your achievements. I remember the softness of your heart when you are exhausted yet still call my name. I see the perseverance in each moment you whisper to yourself, I will try again, with no applause, with no witnesses, with no guarantee that the next attempt will be different. You call it a wall, a limit, a disappointment. I call it the place where I plant the roots of endurance in you, like a seed that cannot sprout in wind and sunlight, but only in earth where light cannot reach. I sow your strength in the dark places you hate to pass through. There are those who think I set you upright so you can prove something to them. They believe I restore you so you can become a statement that you did not fail. But I do not care whether you win in their eyes. I care that your soul is steady enough not to sway with the things they say. I shape you like a smith refining silver. They place silver into fire not to destroy it, but to separate the impurities from its pure essence. When the fire touches it, the silver does not immediately become beautiful. It bubbles, it darkens, it shows ugly streaks that anyone watching from the outside would assume are signs of damage. But the craftsman remains patient, leaning low, watching the liquid surface, looking only for one thing, the moment when his reflection becomes clear. So it is with me. I do not demand that you become perfect immediately. I only ask that you persist until my image slowly appears within you each time you rise again. I know you are tired of having to begin again. I see the moments when you build something good, only for circumstances to sweep it away like strong winds. You ask yourself, why can't I keep what I worked for? But, my child, what is not firm will never stand long before the wind. I do not let you fall to shame you. I let you fall so you may see that the foundation must be deeper. You cannot build a house upon the sand of convenience and call it secure. I bring you down to where the solid rock lies, where you learn to trust me not with your intellect, but with a heart that has been torn and stitched together again. Some lessons cannot be learned with theory. They require marks on the skin, the silence that follows a sob, the trembling breath when you try to stand once more. It is in that place that resilience, like an invisible muscle, begins to form. It is not flashy, not boastful, but it is a strength that no storm can take away. I do not expect you to go through life without ever stumbling. A child who knows how to walk is not one who has never fallen. It is the one who has enough courage to fall and still stand again. You blame yourself for losing balance. You wonder whether I grow weary of you failing again and again. But I do not see a chain of failures. I see a journey of growth. I do not record the moments you fell. I etch into memory the moments you placed your hands on the ground, drew a long breath, and stood up, even while your legs were shaking. You think I watch only official successes, but I see the small efforts no one else sees. The thought, I will try again, before sunrise. The tiny jolt in your heart when you choose not to quit. The whispered prayer in the dark. You call it weakness. I call it the kind of strength heaven honors. My child, I do not give you strength after a fall so you can keep it like a secret gem in your pocket. I give it to you so that you may become a shelter for souls, trembling the way you once trembled. The strength you carry is not a medal to lift high before the crowd. It is like a roof extending outward so that life's sudden rain does not leave others cold and soaked. I know the long nights you endured that only you and I remember, where tears were not failure but the testimony of faith struggling to survive. When I wipe your tears, I do not merely soothe your pain. I am digging a spring within you so that one day it will become water for the thirsty. That is why your strength is not a destination, it is a current, and a current is never meant to be sealed in a container. It must flow to live, must flow to save, must flow to revive souls dying slowly because hope has dried up. You once believed that only when you became perfect would you be able to help others. You waited for the day when you would never stumble again, when your heart would no longer tremble before challenges. But I teach you something different. Those drowning trust the souls who are still wet. No one needs a stone statue that does not know pain. They look for those who have taken deep breaths in the mud, who have trembled in the dark yet still held onto my hand. They trust those who were once weak but returned to the light because they see themselves in that story. They seek empathy, not judgment. They seek warmth, not instructions delivered like cold stone, and you can only carry that warmth if you remember that you yourself once knew the cold. I do not give you strength so you may rise above others. I give you strength so you may walk gently among those who are weaker. There are souls who will pass through your life with eyes lowered, unable to look at anyone, unsure of what to say. You do not need to preach long lessons to them. Remember how I treated you when you were exhausted. I did not argue, I did not interrogate, I did not force you to stand upright. I simply let you lean against me until your breathing became steady again. I call you to do the same for others. At times I will send someone to you with tear-swollen eyes from a small failure the world considers trivial. I do not stir you to say, I have gone through worse. I want you to sit beside them, to let your heart remind them that no pain is too small for me to care about. Do you know why many do not return to me? Because they encountered believers who have forgotten what it feels like to hurt. I do not want you to become one of them. I want you to remember your old wounds long enough for your heart to be soft when you meet the new wounds of someone else. There are moments when you grow strong without realizing it. Someone shares their burden in silence and you simply listen, without judgment, without mockery, without saying, "Is that all?" In that moment, your strength is already at work. The weak do not need heroes. They need a soul who knows that the abyss is not the end. Do not underestimate what I have built in you. I do not train you so that you may say, "I survived, therefore you must too." I train you so that you may say, "I know how this pain feels, and so does the Father." You become a bridge, not a mirror of self-glory. You become a doorway, not a wall. You become a resting place, not an arena for comparison. This is why the strength I give must flow outward. It must not remain locked within testimonies that only preserve your personal glow. I have seen you in the moments you trembled, and it is precisely those trembling moments that made you usable. The world believes usefulness comes from flawless success, but I tell you, usefulness comes from the cracks that know how to acknowledge the light. You do not need to prove that you never broke. You only need to prove that even when broken, you still trust me. When a wandering soul sees that, they gain hope. They think, if I have lifted you after so many collapses, surely I can lift them as well. And that is my purpose, not only to save you, but to save many others through you. The strength you carry after your fall is part of this strategy of love. You are not to carry the victory in silence like a trophy. You are called to become a living witness of my mercy. My child, I did not choose you to separate you from others as someone special standing above the rest. I chose you to place a purpose within your soul, and it is that purpose that will set you apart. Difference does not come from the desire to be noticed, but from accepting the path I have marked for you. You once thought that being different was a burden, that it made you lonely, difficult to blend in, always out of rhythm with the people around you. But I tell you this, difference is not a result of being misplaced, it is the signature of calling. A door is not like the wall beside it because it is designed to open a way. People may look at you in a certain season and say, you are not like them, but I look at you and see that you are standing exactly where I need you to stand, so that when the time comes, I may open the door through you. My child, chosenness is not a jeweled crown, but a promise that I will walk with you on paths others are not willing to walk. I do not call you so that you may be exalted early. I call you so you may mature in silence, where the first steps are seen only by me. You will come to understand this. There are souls whom I love, but not everyone is given the same responsibility. Not because they are weaker than you, nor because you are better than them, but because I have placed a portion of my blueprint within you. When you understand this, you will stop asking, why am I different? And begin asking, what am I different for? That shift in your heart will end the fear that you are lacking something, and instead you will realize that you are being prepared for what many are not called to carry. There are those I grant stability early, and there are those I allow to walk long, quiet stretches before they understand the reason. You belong to the second group not because I have forgotten you, but because I need your roots to be deeper. A tree that grows in a flower pot is easily shaped, but it is also easily carried away by the wind. But the tree that grows among rocks must drive its roots so deeply that even storms cannot uproot it. You think I am making things difficult when you are placed in places others avoid, but I see what lies ahead for you. There are souls who will need someone who knows how to stand firm in silence, how to breathe when misunderstood, how to believe when no one applauds. I do not fashion such people in bright rooms. I form them in hidden places where I can whisper to them step by step. You once thought that being chosen meant being recognized. You believed that when I called you, people would rejoice over that calling. But you must learn this. Recognition is not my seal of approval. I do not wait for the crowd to nod before revealing my will over someone's life. I choose you in stillness, and I let that choosing grow within you like a seed beneath the soil, unseen, yet alive, yet developing, yet bearing a destiny. Your difference will not come from calling others to pay attention to you, but from walking faithfully in the calling even if no one pays attention. When you walk, my choosing reveals itself. When you persevere, my choosing becomes undeniable. And when you stand firm, you no longer need to explain anything to anyone. My child, I give you the choosing so that you may resemble me more, not so that you may resemble the world. I do not want you to become a mirror reflecting their expectations. I want you to reflect my intention. There will be times when what I call you to do makes you appear strange in their eyes. But that is not the strangeness of arrogance. It is the sacred dissonance of those who listen to me. You do not need to force yourself to dissolve into standards that do not belong to me. Light is not made to blend into darkness, and you are not created to blend into compromise. Your difference is proof that I have placed within you a path that lies beyond their sight. The more you know to whom you belong, the more natural your difference becomes, and the more you understand why I call you, the more you will cease resisting that difference as a burden and accept it as evidence of my love. My child, every time you rise after a fall, it is not the act of human will, but a quiet confirmation I send to your soul that I have not abandoned the plan I have ordained. People believe that vision arrives through blinding moments, through explosive events that transform everything in a single instant. But I often choose to touch you through small movements when you wipe away tears, when you decide to try again, when you take another step even though your heart continues to tremble. Those are the moments no one sees, no one praises, no one applauds, and yet they are the moments in which I declare clearly, You are still within my plan. You think outcomes are the evidence, but rising is the evidence. For if I had forsaken you, your soul would sink into a heavy silence. But when you are still able to respond to me, even with a single step, that is already a sign that I am very near. You once thought I would affirm you through great victories, through extraordinary things that would allow you to look at others and say, I did it. But I do not teach you this way. I do not train the soul beneath stage lights, but in quiet places where no one applauds. I do not plant seeds in thunder, but in the dark soil where roots descend before the sprout emerges. Likewise, I do not affirm you through noise. I affirm you through the fact that you still have the courage to rise. When you open your eyes after a long night of shallow breath and say, I will try once more, that is heaven's bell ringing. Even if you do not hear it, I hear it clearly. When you peel threads of pain from your heart and refuse to let them choke you, that is a testimony far stronger than any triumph you have imagined. The world sees victory as a destination, but I see victory as vitality, as a heartbeat that refuses to surrender, as a breath that still searches for a way, as a soul that knows I am here. You once saw rising as a way to reclaim honor, as a way to compensate for failures that scraped your skin, but I do not see failures as stains. I see them as markers on the map, pointing to the places where you must learn to trust me more than your own strength. I do not keep record of how many times you make mistakes. I record the moments you step out of the shadow of self-condemnation and move closer to me. I do not count how many times you fall. I see the small light within you that insists on existing, and I call that hope under training. People will say that failure is the sign of an ending, but I say failure is only the place where you relearn the language of faith. Not faith that burns loudly, not faith that demands attention, but the quiet kind of faith that knows I can still work through broken fragments. My child, many souls believe that I guide them through doors that burst wide open, as though I must shake the foundations for them to know it is me. But you must learn this. Most of the time, I only leave a small crack just enough for you to know that there is still light behind it. I do not want you to rush in because of excitement. I want you to walk slowly because of trust. A door that opens just a little does not say, everything is complete. It says, you are brave enough to take the next step. A door that opens just a little does not erase the past. It gives you a chance to look at the past under a new light. There are moments when you think, I am silent because I do not care, but my silence is not abandonment. It is like moonlight, neither warm nor forceful, yet enough to guide the souls who wait patiently. And within that gentle light, you find courage to walk again. I do not command you to rise with a perfect posture. I call you to rise with a trembling heart, with memories of past falls still clinging to you, with unsteady feet. For I do not measure your worth by how you fall, but by how you turn toward me after each fall. When you come to me weary, I see honesty. When you come to me with questions, I see longing. When you come to me only with a faint breath, I see a prayer you do not even know you have spoken. I do not require you to lift yourself up to prove your strength. I want you to know that true strength comes from letting me lift you. And only when you have experienced this enough will you understand that life is not found in never falling, but in knowing who is the one who catches you every time. My child, when you feel clumsy because you do not know how to step, I do not stand aside to mock you or compare you with those who walk confidently. I do not record your awkwardness as evidence against you. I look at the tender places of your heart, the hidden corners untouched by anyone, and I know those are the very places that must be nurtured. Your soul thinks clumsiness is a sign of failure, but in my eyes, it is only the beginning of growth. Like a potter looking at clay still unshaped, I do not despise the rough patches. I simply place my hand upon them quietly and smooth them so the clay can gradually align with the purpose I have intended. You see the unevenness as a flaw, but I see the places that must be touched so you may become a new form. You often think I want you strong from the first attempt. You think I expect you to walk without mistakes, speak without faltering, act without trembling. But my child, I do not expect these things. I do not place the burden of perfection on your shoulders. I do not demand that you excel in everything the moment you begin. I know maturity takes time. I know feet must learn the ground before they learn how to walk. I know trembling hands are the easiest for me to teach, because they have not yet learned the habit of relying on their own strength. That is why I do not mock your clumsiness. I draw near to place my hand upon your trembling, so you may know that even when you are not steady, I am still instructing you. There are moments when you blame yourself over the smallest things. You feel ashamed for reacting too quickly, or for not being able to express what you meant to say. You are disappointed when you repeat old mistakes. You think, perhaps I am wrong, but I see repetition as an opportunity to refine. A rough patch does not disappear with a single touch. The potter turns the wheel over and over, wets the dry clay, presses his hand against the hard places until the curves become smooth. You see repetition as punishment, but I see it as the rhythm of shaping. You want to progress quickly, but I want you to endure. You want to be perfected immediately, but I want you to be formed in a way that helps you understand both me and yourself. My child, when I refine you, it is never an act of humiliation. It is not punishment, but care. The potter does not smooth the clay to take revenge on it. He does so because he knows the final form can only appear when the rough edges are worked. Likewise, I do not put you into situations that expose your weaknesses to shame you. I bring you into them so you will know that those weaknesses were never beyond my power. I want you to see the corners that must be touched, so you do not live in pretense. I do not need you to hide your cracks beneath a strong facade. I need you to bring them to me, the way the clay offers its shape to the potter's hands. You once believed I would be pleased if you became strong quickly, but, in truth, I rejoice more when you return to me each time you lose control of yourself. I do not seek perfect steps. I seek a heart that is willing to learn. That heart may tremble, may ache, may be angry at itself, but it still returns to my arms. And it is precisely in that turning back that maturity begins. You thought maturity meant no more mistakes, but true maturity is when you no longer hide from me after every mistake. I do not abandon the difficult places. I do not say, this flaw is too much. I do not leave you because you have not learned to stand. It is when you are at your weakest that I can teach most gently, because you have finally stopped depending on your own willpower. No one sees the things I am refining in the depths of your soul. People only see the surface. They see the fragments on the outside, how you speak, how you maintain calm, how you respond. But they do not see the moments you swallow pride, the moments you learn silence when you want to react, the moments you slow down even when the world urges you to run. It is in these unseen moments that I shape you in ways only I understand. And you will discover that maturity does not come from great leaps, but from the small movements that happen each day, like the gentle friction between the potter's fingers and the clay, not loud, not rushed, but full of intention. Do not despise your clumsiness, and do not be quick to define yourself by moments you did not do well. You are not a lump of discarded clay left in a corner. You are in my hands, and my hands have never trembled. I am not in a hurry. I am not angry. I am not disappointed that you need more time. I patiently turn the wheel because I saw your final form long before you knew you were clay, and I will not stop until that form is revealed. There are words of gratitude that are not spoken through songs or lifted up in prayer, but written in every moment you rise again after a fall. You thought thanksgiving was long prayers, sacred silence, or worship filled with emotion, but I see it elsewhere, when you choose to move forward even when exhausted, when you wipe your tears and face life again, when you refuse to give up, though every sign around you tells you it is pointless. Each rising after a stumble is the clearest thank you, not because you are strong, but because you still believe in me. That gratitude needs no explanation. It echoes in the spiritual realm before you utter a single word. You do not know that when you stagger in disappointment, when your knees still tremble, I already count your rising as a silent song of praise. You think you must be perfect to please me, but I am moved by the small courage within you. I do not measure by how high you reach. I measure by every moment you refuse to let failure rule your soul. Some can speak much about faith. Some can teach others to trust. Some claim they understand me, but you The one who falls and rises are the one who truly lives it without needing to prove anything. You have never seen yourself as holy while still covered in dust, but I call that worship in its most primal form. You are weak, and I draw near. Rising after many falls carries a voice that 100 sermons cannot convey. A person may speak of trust, but only one who rises after failure knows what true belief is. A person may praise me on a favorable day, but the one who falls and seeks me in the darkness understands how I lift. I do not need a perfect soul. I need a sincere one. I can use your timid faithfulness far more than eloquent speeches. You do not realize that heaven listens to all of it, not through your voice, but through the way you keep walking. Some plead with me for miracles. Some ask me to change their circumstances, but your rising is the miracle I see. When you stumble, the enemy says it is the final chapter. You stand up, and I call it the beginning. When you are exhausted, people say you should stop. You continue walking, and I acknowledge it as service, not because you understand the end of the journey, but because you trust me enough to take one more step. You do not need to carry a polished testimony, only a soul that refuses to surrender. That is the surrender I delight in. Your falls, to you, are evidence of imperfection, but to me, they are the growth chart of a child who knows how to trust his father. When a child learns to walk, the parents do not stand there to judge the first stumble. They look at the act of rising. I do the same. I do not record how many times you fail. I keep the moments when you rise. I do not care how many attempts it takes for you to learn a lesson. I only care that you do not leave me. The world looks at the result. I look at the journey. You look at how long it takes to recover. I look at the hope you did not abandon. My child, rising after many falls is like a bell of thanksgiving that resounds in the spiritual realm. It reaches farther than ornate prayers because it comes from the deepest place in your heart, the place where I have planted faith. When you say, I will still walk, even when there is no strength left. When you say, I still believe, even though your eyes see no sign. When you say, I will not let go, even while your heart is heavy. I see it as the greatest reverence. No crowd needs to witness it. Heaven has already remembered. People may disdain it, but I call it victory in the unseen. I know there are times when you rise not because you are strong, but because you do not want to disappoint me. I know there are nights when you recover slowly, wondering if you are still worthy of my patience. I know there are mornings when you step out of bed only because you believe I have not abandoned you. All those moments I receive as the purest thanksgiving. With your action, you have spoken to me. I still trust you, Father. You do not need rituals to prove that. The simple act of rising after a fall is enough for me to recognize the faithfulness within you. People love to behold dazzling light, but I listen to the faint glow that still flickers in the night. People want to hear grand declarations, but I pay attention to those who only know how to whisper, Father, help me rise. And my child, if the world calls that rising small, I call it glory. For every time you return to me, you are training your heart not to live by failure. Every step forward is worship to me through your real life, not through performance or explanation. Therefore, do not ask yourself whether what you are doing is meaningful enough. When you rise after a fall, you are doing what many souls have never dared to do, choosing to trust me instead of the voice of disappointment within. You do not need applause, nor approving eyes, nor certificates. You only need to keep rising, because in that moment, you are living a thanksgiving that makes the heavens smile. Faith is not a flat road where you never stumble, but a winding journey where every fall becomes a gentle reminder that you need me. There are seasons when you think you have failed because you could not maintain perfection, because your will slipped through your hands, because your soul could no longer pull the body forward. You think I demand strength that never falters, resolve that never wavers, faithfulness that never grows tired. But faith is not measured by how long you stay balanced. It is measured by how many times you decide to come back when balance is lost. Every return is a road home, not the detour of a loser, but the heartbeat of a soul that knows where safety is. When you rise in silence, with no promises to anyone, just a lifted gaze, I perceive it as a prayer without words. And in every second of it, do not forget, I do not count the number of times you fall. I record the times you find your way back. The scripture you once heard, if we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive us, is not only for those who commit obvious wrongs, but also for souls still learning to walk in the light with clumsy steps. There are falls that make you feel ashamed, not because the sin was great, but because you thought you had already grown beyond it. You tell yourself, I should not be like this anymore, and when it happens, you condemn yourself. I see those moments more clearly than anyone, not to reproach you, but to keep you from drowning in deep waters. A fall in the spiritual life is not always a misstep. Often it is merely a sign that the soul is growing. Just like a child learning to walk, the center of gravity shifts, the legs are not yet familiar with their own weight, so they fall. The father is not angry because the child falls, but joyful because the child dares to rise again. That is how I see you. I do not track your stumbles to mark faults. I track your risings to sow hope. Even when you only turn your face toward me, no words, no explanation, no apology, just a long breath in exhaustion. I count it as the first step home. There are falls that make you afraid to return because you think I am disappointed. You imagine that you must come before me, looking stronger, tidier, without wounds. But you forget that returning in an unfinished state is the very essence of grace. I do not build the entrance to my house with fences of conditions. I lay only one road called come back. When you step onto that road, there are no mocking voices, no judging eyes, only a subtle peace like warmth slipping in after a long cold day. You cannot see it, but every time you return after a fall, the angels rejoice more than over those who never stumble. I do not rejoice because you fell. I rejoice because you loved me enough to return. Not everyone has that courage. Many choose to stay in the dust, to hide their wounds and pretend they are standing. You do not, and that is what makes me treasure you. Returning is not a shameful act. It is a declaration that I am still your source. You will see that when you come back, I do not remind you of failure. I lead you to look at what is healing within. A fall exposes layers of the soul you thought were already fine, a fear still lying dormant, a tiny jealousy not yet recognized, a hidden pride tucked behind your achievements. These things are not corruption. They are simply corners, not yet touched by light. You return so that light may enter, not so that I may punish. Like the moon that does not burn yet is enough to guide in the night. I do not use blows to correct you. I use stillness to draw your gaze to the places where you still need me. And that silence is not abandonment. It is an invitation to step out of the endless monologue of blaming yourself. You think a strong person is one who never retreats, but in truth, a strong person is one who knows where to stop, in my arms. The training of faith is not so you become a machine that acts correctly at all times, but so your heart may learn who I am through each moment of weakness. Every time you return, you carve this truth deeper into your soul. I do not seek what is flawless, I seek what is honest. If you kneel with a bitter heart, that is not prayer. But if you kneel knowing that I still love you, that is faith. I do not love you because you win. I loved you before you ever knew you could lose. When you come back, you are honoring that truth not with ceremony, not with complicated words, but simply with your presence in relationship with me. Perseverance is not formed in gentle days, but in the hours when you think you cannot bear one more attempt. When trials drag on, you often think they are working against your future, but you do not see that in those very moments I am laying foundations within you. Perseverance is not you trying harder in your own strength. It is learning to breathe in rhythm with me, like the shoreline receiving each wave, not resisting, not panicking, simply knowing the next one will come, yet none will ever swallow the land. There are times you want to cast everything aside, convinced that you are so weak you no longer have value, but perseverance does not demand that you feel strong. It only asks that you do. Not walk away from me. When you keep your gaze on me, even as your whole being trembles, that is when your soul is being shaped. I do not record your perfection. I record your returns after each storm, and those returns lay the foundation for the days you believe you have no strength left to stand. Many see trials as burdens, but in me, trials are like a drumbeat that keeps your steps in time. A crack in the trunk does not make a tree useless. It reveals that the roots have gone deep enough to endure strong winds. So it is with you. Each time you are tested, you think you are losing height. But in truth, you are putting down roots. Roots are unseen, uncelebrated, unpraised, yet they are where true life is preserved. When the surface is no longer stable, it is the roots that decide whether you stand or fall. And I am working with the roots of your soul. I am not in a hurry, because no enduring foundation is formed overnight. I am teaching you that whatever can collapse is simply what has not been anchored deep enough. Whatever remains standing is what I myself have built. Perseverance is learning to accept this process as a rhythm. You rise, you fall, you rise, you fall, and then you rise again, and with each rising, you tremble a little less. You once asked me why I do not remove the obstacles, why I do not sweep away everything that slows your steps. But trials are not walls blocking your path. They are teachers training your soul in steadfastness. A rhythm is not formed by hearing a sound once. It is formed when the sound repeats long enough to become your breathing. I do not lead you only through gentle breezes, because I know soft winds teach you little. I allow you to face pressures just strong enough for you to know that you are not abandoned, yet also not able to rely on your own strength. When you are exhausted, I do not stand at a distance watching. I am quietly beside you, like the earth cradling a seed in the winter night. The life within has not disappeared. It is only resting, waiting for a warmer season. Perseverance is knowing you do not always have to see results immediately. Sometimes you simply need to trust that I have not left you. There are trials that do not roar, that do not appear as great crises, but come in small things. A careless comment that makes you withdraw, a quiet disappointment that discourages you, a comparison that makes you lose confidence in your own path. You see these as weakness, but they are delicate mirrors reflecting the places in your heart that need my touch. Perseverance is not the absence of pain. It is refusing to let pain dictate your direction. I see the times you try to explain yourself just to prove you are good enough, then fall silent. I see the evenings when you sit quietly in your room, fully aware your thoughts no longer want to move forward, yet you cannot bring yourself to turn away. Those moments with no applause, no witnesses, no one to console you are precisely where I train your soul to be steady. The rhythm I am teaching you is not the rhythm of emotion, but the rhythm of trust. Perseverance does not come from winning over and over, but from not giving up on an ordinary day. Remember, you do not walk alone. I am not waiting at the end of the road. I walk beside you. When you lose your breath, I slow my pace. When you stop, I stand still. When you weep, I do not look for stern commands. I look for where your heart is bleeding. I know you do not need hard orders. You need my breath to steady you again. That is why I do not drive you. I invite to you. I do not force you to grow up. I grow with you. A soul trained by me is not transformed by fear, but by a trust that builds slowly, today a little, tomorrow a little more. That is the nature of perseverance, a journey longer than all passing emotions. No fall is meaningless if it leads you to seek me with a sincere heart. You often measure your worth by fewer failures, by steps that grow more stable, by seasons in which you barely stumble. But I look deeper than you think. I do not count how long you stay standing. I listen to how your heart calls my name when your feet slip. There are moments when you feel as if the whole sky is crashing down on you because of one small mistake, one unwise choice, one emotion you could not control. People may look at that and say, weak, unworthy, not strong enough. But I do not label your falls with those names. I call them doors through which your soul learns to trust me rather than itself. For no one has ever learned to stand firm without first knowing what it is to lose balance. There are falls you endure in silence, unseen by anyone, heavy thoughts that slowly swallow your peace, shame that makes you avoid the eyes of others, a sense of not belonging that causes you to close your heart. These slips do not bruise your skin, they scratch your mind. It is there that I see the true worth of a soul. I do not focus on the posture you are in when you fall. I look at the direction you turn when you want to rise. Sometimes you come to me with a hesitant prayer, unfinished, uncertain, lacking confidence. but I hear it more clearly than the most polished sermon. I do not seek fabricated strength, I seek truth. If a fall opens in you a genuine cry for me, then that fall is part of the journey I am using to shape you. My child, you once thought I was disappointed when I saw the same mistakes repeat. You sat with your head bowed, believing I was standing at a distance, watching and waiting for you to do better on your own. But I have never been a strict referee standing by the track. I am the one who steps down beside you when you stumble. I do not ask, "Why did you fall?" I ask, "Will you let me lift you up?" Every time you open your heart to me, even if your words are only a whisper, you give me permission to intervene in the places where you are still weak. And it is in that very moment, not in your perfection, that you truly grow. I do not need you to prove your resilience. I need you to prove your trust. When your eyes turn toward me in the middle of confusion, that is when you step out from the shadow of failure. Do not see your fall as a stain that makes me turn away. I saw every time you would collapse even before you could name your own fears. I do not allow you to fall in order to ruin you, but to strip away the layers of pride and stubbornness, the stones you stacked around your heart to prove that you were strong enough. A soul that always stands straight, because it is afraid to fall, is a soul that has not yet learned that I am its support, a soul willing to fall within. My arms is a soul learning to love me more than its own ego. That is why there are times I allow you to lose your footing, so you will see your limits, so you will stop using logic or false confidence to force your way. I use brokenness to open a crack for light, not the harsh light of scrutiny, but the gentle light of my presence. One fall may cause people to avoid you, but it draws me closer. When your heart feels heavy, when you cannot lift your eyes, when your breath shortens with shame, I do not step back, I step forward. I place my hand on your shoulder, not to pressure you into standing, but to tell you that you were never meant to get up alone. I do not call you a failure. I call you someone learning to trust. Every child wobbles before they learn to run, and no one condemns a child for stumbling. They only worry when the child refuses to walk again. So it is with me. I do not demand that you be perfect right now. I only want your heart not to shut down. If you still come to me, still open your heart to me, still call my name in confusion, I know you are still on the right path. Because in my eyes, a soul that knows how to return is stronger than a soul that has never fallen. The one who has never stumbled may think they stand firm because of their skill. The one who has risen many times knows that their standing comes from me. I am shaping you not merely so you survive, but so you learn to love yourself within the process of my molding. Maturity in me is not a chain of uninterrupted victories. It is a chain of returns with a softened heart. A single fall can teach you more than 10 successes if you know how to place your weak hand into mine. And when that becomes your rhythm, you will realize that no wound is meaningless, no tear is wasted, no misstep is forgotten, for I have turned them all into the foundation of endurance within you. I show you that rising is not just an action, it is a declaration of identity. You belong to me. No matter how many times you fall, you often think that only when you have fixed all your flaws, only when you are strong enough, only when you no longer stumble in the same place, will you be worthy to keep going. But I do not wait for your perfection before I call you mine. I call you while you are still trembling, still afraid, still falling in places you thought you had outgrown. I do not see your stumble as proof of failure. I see your decision to stand as proof that you still recognize me as the source of your life. Every time you rise, you are speaking to the darkness that it has not kept you, to old memories that they no longer rule, to your own heart that faith is not a passing feeling, but the rope that draws your soul back to me. I see the times you tried to get up by sheer will, stuffing all your exhaustion into your chest, afraid to breathe deeply in case someone noticed your weakness. You told yourself, I have to get it right, I have to be stronger, I must not fall again. And every time you slipped once more, you looked at yourself as though I must be disappointed. But I am not sitting far away, grading your efforts. I step into every moment. You stagger, so that my hand can become the place you hold on to. Many times you think getting up is an act of sheer grit, the moment you tense your muscles and prove that you are fine. But I see getting up differently, as an answer, a small but living whisper that says you still trust. Me, even when your emotions no longer trust you. So do not despise the times you rise while your heart is still shaking. Those are your truest moments, when you walk with me in honesty rather than in strain. There are souls who think that belonging to me is proven by a life without stumbles. They imagine that the chosen are those always strong enough to avoid mistakes, wise enough never to misstep, holy enough never to be tempted. But I have never described the path that way. I have chosen those who can fall, yet do not run from me. I call those who know they are fragile, yet open their hearts for me to heal. I walk with the souls who bow, who admit, who return. The one who has never fallen may think they belong to me because of their personal ability. The one who has stood up many times knows they belong to me because of my preserving grace. You do not live in the light like a statue fixed in the center. You live in the light as a traveler, a learner, a growing child under my hand. Rising does not report that you are perfect. It simply confirms that you have not left me. I know that in long nights, when there is no one left to explain yourself to, you look within and quietly ask, have I lost my identity? Have I wandered off the path? Those questions are not signs of weakness. They are the signals of a mind seeking its way back to me. If your soul never wanted to return, that would be cause for concern. But every time you grow weary and still seek me, you are proving that you have engraved your name in the place I call home. Shame is not your final definition. Exhaustion is not your conclusion. The slips are not your sentence. I am only concerned with what you choose to do right after. Do you pour your heart into self-accusation? Or do you place your small feet where my arms are open? I have never required you to have complete answers. I only ask you to choose the right direction, and that direction is always toward me. A soul that knows how to rise is not a fantastically strong soul. It is a soul that has accepted its limits and opened the door for me to enter. I want you to realize that rising is not measured by motivation, but by faith. Motivation can vanish when you are tired. Faith endures even when you are drained. There will be times when all you can manage to say is, Lord, I am not finished yet, to the world. That may sound like an admission of weakness. To me, it is a song of worship. Because when you say, I am not finished, you are really saying, I am continuing with you. It is that very continuation, slow, uneven, unimpressive in the eyes of others that I cherish. The world may honor a flawless race. I honor a heart that does not give up. Do not believe that belonging to me ends the moment you fall. Your belonging to me is the root, not the blossom. I called you mine before you ever learned how to pray. I saw you in the light before you even knew you were stumbling in the dark. I brought you back not because you were skilled at standing firm, but because you have been known by me from the beginning. Every time you rise, you are doing what every soul who belongs to me does, returning to my breath, stepping into the peace I have already prepared. And when you understand this, you will stop asking, why did I fall? And begin asking, how should I walk so that your hand is always my support? I do not seek perfection, I seek connection. When each time you stand up draws you deeper into me, every stumble becomes a pathway. I teach you that true strength is not imposing yourself upon others, but becoming a space of peace they can step into on their own. There were seasons when you thought strength was hardness, was a loud voice, was the ability to win every argument. You believed you had to prove what was right, persuade by reasoning, force change as proof that you were growing. But the harder you strained, the more exhausted you became. I did not create you to be a hammer striking the hearts of others. I created you as an open hand, a place where weary souls can rest after long roads. True strength does not bend another's will. It simply exists as a safe place where their burdens can be set down after too many miles of carrying them. When your heart is at peace, you do not need to force others to understand you. You only need to stand as a witness that peace is real. Many times you hurt because others did not change according to your expectations. You were weary when they returned to old habits, spoke words that wounded you, or kept circling their fears long after you had moved forward. You asked me, why do they not understand? I explained so many times. You did not see that explanations are not the key to a heart. that has shut itself. Force only tightens the door. I lead you by love, not pressure. I am the one with all authority, yet I do not crush your freedom. I counsel, I invite, I wait. I draw near when you are worn. I place the truth in your hand, but I allow you to approach it. This is not because I am weak, but because I respect your soul. If I have treated you like this, why do you think you must act differently toward those I love? There are people who change when they are seen, not when they are judged. Some wounds need a quiet place to settle, not a blade to cut deeper. Some souls are lost because of the noise of life, not because they rebel deliberately. When you become a space of peace, you are like an open door. The weary will step in if they desire. The confused will pause to breathe. The frightened will learn that here they are, not measured or compared. Your true strength is not found in pushing them into a mold. It is found in standing steady in your faith, so that the peace I have sown in you becomes a gentle invitation. I do not ask you to chase them. I ask you to live as someone who knows they belong to me, so the quiet light within you has a place to touch them. You once asked me why your prayers for others seemed ineffective. You believed that if you spoke enough, if you pointed out their mistakes, if you showed them how you had once been wrong, they would finally awaken. But look at how you yourself were transformed. Was it because I rebuked you harshly? Was it because I dragged you forward as an example of failure? Or was it because I stood beside you patiently, so that when you became tired of your own choices, I was the place you returned to? I did not strip you of dignity so that you would know your weakness. I simply embraced the most fragile parts of you so that you would realize I had never abandoned you. My strength comes in that gentleness, not loud, not boastful, not in need of applause. And the strength I am building in you works the same way. It does not flare from you like fire. It settles within you like a deep lake, where anyone who approaches sees their own reflection more clearly. Do not mistake gentleness for weakness. I have used gentleness to shatter arrogance as hard as stone. I have used peace to quiet the noise of the world. I have used patience to break the spine of despair. When you are in me, you do not have to prove your correctness, because I am the truth. You do not need to grasp control, because I hold all things in my hand. Wherever you stand, and there is room for others to breathe, that place is a sign of true strength. Wherever the weak can stand beside you without feeling smaller, there, your soul has learned my rhythm. True strength is not a weapon to fight with. It is a shelter where others may rest. There will be times when people distance themselves from you, not because you did wrong, but because your peace reveals their chaos. I need you to remain steady, not to defend yourself, but to be a marker they can return to when they are weary. They may never thank you, they may never acknowledge you, they may never look back, but that changes nothing about your calling. You are not the one who measures results. You are the one who carries my atmosphere wherever you go. Do not force anyone to walk the road you have chosen. Keep the door open. If they wish, they will step through. If they need, they will come. If they are ready, I will lead them through you. And then you will know that it was not you who persuaded them, but I who drew them with the peace I placed in you. You become a sign to weary souls that true peace is not found in artificial safety, but in me. Not because you have reached perfection, but because you have learned how to walk through your wounds without losing sight of me. Those around you may not remember every word you spoke, but they will remember how you stood up, without haste, without bitterness, simply returning to me like someone who knows the way home. That peace, unboastful, unshaken, will unlock doors they thought were sealed, like a beam slipping through a crack in the wall, small enough to remain humble, yet strong enough to guide. And when they ask why you no longer collapse as you once did, you will not need to explain. Your presence will already contain the answer, because you no longer belong to fear, you belong to me. Now pray as follows. Lord, teach me to look at my stumbles through your eyes, so that I do not drown in self-reproach, but recognize them as moments in which you invite me to rise and learn deeper trust. Remind me that you do not record my falls to accuse me, but you cherish every time I return to you with a tired heart that has not given up. Lord, when I feel too weak to continue, remind me that true strength does not come from never failing, but from placing hope in you even after I fail. Teach me to quietly stand up under your guiding hand and believe that you are forming a soul that knows endurance. Lord, remove from me the shame over the cracks in my heart, and let me see that your healing light often enters through those very openings. Do not let me despise the parts of me still unfinished, for it is there that you are making me new. Lord, do not let the fear of judgment lead me to silence, compromise, or concealment. Grant me the courage to name the things I am avoiding and place them before you, so that your truth may become the place where my soul finds rest. Lord, when words of correction reveal the pride still hidden within me, do not let me rush to defend myself. Teach me to pause and learn the spiritual lesson you are inviting me into. Shape my heart to be gentle under your discipline. Lord, help me understand that trials do not come to crush me, but to test my faith and make it steadfast. Teach me to look to your patience rather than the hurried demands of the world. Lord, when I try to hide my exhaustion behind reluctant smiles, draw me back to you, so I no longer have to pretend to be strong. Remind me that being weak before you is a privilege, not a shame. Lord, liberate me from the habit of postponement, for each time I wait for tomorrow, a part of my faith grows cold. Teach me to grasp the present moment you give, even when my heart is trembling. Lord, do not allow me to believe that false safety is the source of true peace. Open my eyes to see that the peace you give does not come from avoiding collision, but from knowing you are holding my hand as I face reality. Lord, when I compare myself to others and feel inferior, remind me that you did not build me according to their measures. Teach me to grow according to your rhythm, not beneath the pressure of human expectations. Lord, grant me gratitude for every time you let me begin again. Place gentleness in my heart so I do not despise my past or fear the future, but understand that every time I rise in faith is one more step. You are leading me deeper into your love. Lord, help me see that rising is not a performance to prove myself, but a response to your invitation. Let me move forward not because the world is waiting, but because you saw me even when everyone else turned away. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, so that together we may build a strong community of faith.